Welcome. Thank you all very much for joining us, especially those who are able to make it here in person despite the traffic disruption. And of course, a very warm welcome to everyone who's joining online via the live stream for this Grodan event looking at circular solutions in horticulture. I'm Jennifer Baker. I will be your moderator and your MC for the next hour and a half. And we're going to address how circular approaches can support more efficient and sustainable horticultural practices across Europe, with a particular focus on technological advancements. Now, I should say that our meeting here today is as a partner event of EU Green Week, so we know a lot of these conversations are happening all around Brussels. We will have, of course, food industry experts, researchers, policymakers, and growers here to talk to us. We will also be using Mentimeter to try and engage with people, so keep your phones handy, but perhaps put them on silent. I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're going to do with that as the time comes. A few words about Grodan to start off. They manufacture stone wool substrates and offer recycling solutions and services. And this out of soil growing method actually results in up to the use of 50% less water. It can result in 20% less chemical plant protection products, 75% less land use, and the material is, of course, 100% recyclable. So bear those figures in mind as we go through our discussion. But I'm going to hand over the floor now for our formal welcome to Bianca Ostelar, Public Affairs Manager at Grodan.
Well, as the moderator already indicated, my name is Bianca Oostelaar. I'm the Public Affairs Manager for Grodan. And on behalf of Grodan, I really would like to welcome you to the Green Week Partner event with a focus on what just been said, focus on circular solutions in horticulture. At Grodan, we are great ambassadors of controlled environment agriculture, meaning growing crops in a closed indoor environment and under controlled conditions such as greenhouses or vertical farms, where temperature, humidity, light and other factors can be precisely monitored. I just would like to give you a couple of interesting figures to paint the picture of the demands of the current food systems. In 2050, the world populations reached about 9, or if you look at what was online, 9 or 10 billion people. And 17% of those people will be living in urban areas. And this growing population will need to have access to healthy and nutritious food. But to be able to feed that 9 or 10 billion people, we will most likely have to produce double the amount of food, and which less than half of the current resources. Then next to that, less than 1% of fresh water on Earth is readily available and accessible, but only 70% of water is already used and consumed by irrigation for agriculture. And controlled environment agriculture, therefore, is a key to producing reliable and nutritious food, while also taking into account the predictability of yield, as well as the availability of food all year round. But how does that exactly work? Growing fruits and vegetables in a controlled environment agriculture, and how does that relate, because that's we're here, to circularity? Well, controlled environment agriculture can be done in soil, out of soil. At Grodan, we invented the hydroponic system back in 1968, and we have continuously evolved the growing approach to sustainable growing. The largest impacts and challenges are achieved by soilless growing using stone wool substrates, because they do not buffer water and nutrients and are extremely steerable, giving roots exactly what they need, and that's what we call precision farming. And one of the biggest benefits is water saving, as one of the biggest advantages of SEA. Traditional farming methods often require vast amounts of water, whereas SEA employs efficient irrigation systems and recycling techniques, which also minimizes water usage. And this efficient water usage with SEA is particularly crucial in regions facing water scarcity, of course, or drought conditions. And additionally, SEA enables the reduction of fertilizing usage and plant protection products. So that's also a double effect. The closed environment in SEA minimizes the need for interventions, making it a more sustainable and eco-friendlier alternative. By the way, did you know that for growing 30 kilos of tomatoes in open field, 60 liters of water is required. And when for hydroponic systems, just 15 liters. So there's a huge water saving benefit when you look at from a SEA perspective. Also, more efficient use for the transport of water, like irrigation management of the crop, of the reuse of water, are also the main reasons, of course, for this. At Grodan, we also very closely monitor everything what's now happening with regards to the water resilience strategy, as this will also pave the way for future legislation, will also have a major impact on our business operations. Well, I've been talking about out of soil growing, water saving, land sparing is the third topic I'd like to address. By cultivating crops indoors, SEA reduces the reliance on fertile land, enabling food production in urban areas and minimizing land transportation for agriculture, leaving more land, of course, for rewilding and for biodiversity. Next to that, best case examples, best practices, it will also provide protection against extreme weather conditions, like pests, diseases, which of course also will reduce the amount of crop losses and increasing overall productivity. SEA is being adopted currently worldwide in increasing number of countries. It will increase food security and self-sufficiency in regions that are more susceptible to climate challenges or which have limited arable land. And the expansion of SEA has resulted in an expansion of hectares dedicated to year-round cultivation in an efficient manner, ensuring a stable local food supply. Also, food can be produced near urban centers, reducing the distance from cultivation to the marketplace. And the last point I'd like to make is recycling bit. We, of course, as a company, also very much committed to adding our own sustainable working on circular economy. We've built a network together and partnerships with leading recycling organizations in all the countries where we are located. We offer recycling services to over 62% of its product consumers across the globe. And with the help of our customers, we recycle thousands of tons of stone wool every year. What we do is we take off back stone wool, and stone wool is either being reused to make new stone wool, or it will go back to making the manufacturing of bricks possible. From a circular perspective, we're also doing our utmost to increase sustainable production. We're working on the recyclability of the plastics, foils that are part of our product. We are on the process of electrifying our ovens, where our basalt is turned into stone wool. We work on new binder compositions, which will have a major impact on our emissions. And of course, we are currently deducting green energy. So all in all, if I look back to the short introduction I just gave, SEA is well equipped to foster circularity, especially when it comes to water savings, the reduction of fertilizer usage and plant protection products compared to conventional farming, land sparing, and in our case, when we talk about Grodan stone wool, the recycling practices. We feel that by embracing and investing in controlled environment agriculture, we can work towards a more sustainable and resilient future for our food production systems. I'd like to thank you for your attention and would like to give you the enjoyment of listening to our panel speakers this afternoon.
Thank you very much indeed, Bianca, for setting that out for us. We're going to move on now to our keynote presentation. So I'm going to hand over the floor to Bart van de Kasteel, Senior Researcher at ILVO, who is going to talk us through circular horticulture from research to practice and the link with soil-friendly practices. You've got your clicker. Please take the floor.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, that's me. Hi, I'm Bart van der Kastelen. I work at the Flanders Research Institute for Agricultural and Fisheries Research in Flanders, the northern part of Belgium, so I don't come from very far. I'm very glad that I can explain you a little bit about our experiences about circular horticulture. Okay, we start with an infographic to explain what is circular horticulture. That's like the key message of today. It starts from the linear economy and it goes to the circular economy, and it explains in a very simple way what it actually is all about. It's about avoiding waste. It's about recycling everything or reusing or a circular use of all our resources. We can also transpose it to circular horticulture. And that's the topic of today. It's a very simple infographic, but with the other examples I will give, I will explain that it's sometimes also quite complicated to achieve it. So we start in open air, and here you see very happy cauliflowers, but you don't see them anymore because they are harvested. So after the harvest of these cauliflowers, we still have the crop residues. They are very rich in nitrogen. And well, they are at the field. At the moment, we don't need the nitrogen anymore for a next crop. So there is a huge risk of nitrogen leaching. So it's not circular, it's leaching, it's environmental pollution. But that's the problem with a lot of vegetables, that they need a lot of nitrogen in the beginning of the growing season. What happens during the growing season, it's not at all predictable. So at the end of the growing season, we have these crop residues which are very rich in nitrogen, and we don't really know how to handle them. But in the picture you can see two very small inventions that were tested. You actually see that you have the big leaves, but you also see young leaves. And actually we left the crop residues in the field after the harvest, and they started to regrow. And by regrowing, they took up the residual nitrogen, so we had less loss of nitrogen. And the second fun thing was that we harvested the crop residues, and it was quite easy. It was like cutting your grass. But then you have biomass that you maybe can reuse, and then you can convert it into a fertilizer and then bring it back to the field in spring, when you actually can use the nitrogen for the next crop. So these crop residues in open air, a linear solution is actually you just leave them in the field. At the wrong moment, you incorporate them and you have nitrogen losses. A circular solution can be that you harvest the biomass and you try to reuse it later on. You can use the biomass to produce energy, or you can convert it into an organic fertilizer and use it back for the next crop. It's a very simple example, but of course to make it happen in reality, even in Flanders, it's sometimes quite complicated. Another invention or something that growers are doing more and more, it's because they have these problems in open air cultivation with the unpredictable climate. Sometimes it's too dry, sometimes it's too wet, it's too hot, it's too cold. So we grow the seeds to small plants in the greenhouse, and then we bring these stronger plants in the field. So we have a shorter cultivation period, and we have stronger plants when they come in the field. So this is like a first step maybe towards the next part of the presentation, because we will move to the greenhouse, of course. But in all the examples that will follow, we need to think about circularity. Is it about using nutrients in a circular way, or is it about carbon? It's about biomass, water, energy, or is it about pathogens and contaminants that we are going to use in a circular way? So all of these aspects we will try to cover today. And then we come to hydroponics. For instance, here you have a greenhouse with basil plants growing, but actually hydroponics, it seems like you grow plants on water, which is not completely true, because these plants, they need a medium to root in. So this is the growing medium where plants can growing, and then you can harvest the basil in a controlled way. You can recycle the water. It's a very efficient system, as was explained before. However, at the end of the cultivation, we have a leftover, we have some crop residues, we have some growing medium that is left. And this is like the challenge of the circular horticulture, because yes, what you see here, it's biomass, it's nutrients, it's carbon, it's energy, it's water, it's everything together. And how can you efficiently use it again by taking into account the properties of this residual material. And these are very happy strawberries and Flanders. They grow in the greenhouse, they grow in a growing medium, and in this system, actually the water that you supply to the plants and that is not used by the plants, it's completely 100% recycled. Also the nutrients that are not used by the plants, they are recaptured and you can reuse. So it's like a closed loop system. It's very efficient. And well, in this system you can steer the water application, fertilizers, the climate, CO2. Also the length of the cultivation can be controlled by the grower, and it's actually a quite closed system. Only after you picked the last strawberry and you ate it, you have some leftovers, you have the crop residues, and you have the spent growing media. And we looked at the opportunities to reuse these materials. But this very critical man, they say, yeah, but what you are talking about, maybe it doesn't make sense because there is maybe competition for biomass. If you use a growing medium one season, at the end of the cultivation, maybe it's rubbish. It's lost all its quality. And again, maybe only pathogens and contaminants, they are circular. So maybe you are increasing risks by reusing growing media for different applications. But we have tested this from 3 perspectives. So the physical properties of a growing medium, the biological properties, and the chemical properties. And we were very excited about the results because we saw actually that the physical properties, they didn't decrease. And in some cases, they even increased because of the roots. They provided more structure in the growing medium. And also we kept most of the volume of the biomass of the growing medium. In terms of biological properties, we saw that the material becomes more stable when you use it for growing crops, so it's less decompositioning happening. There is less risk for nitrogen immobilization, which means that there is less nitrogen taken away from the roots, from the crops, so it's more available to the crops. And we also saw that the microbiology, it was more balanced, so we could more predict what will happen in this spent growing media. And then we had the chemical properties, and there we saw that nutrients and salts, they are quite challenging, but we found some solutions for looking at this. But this actually meant that we could move from a linear system to a circular system in terms of using growing media. And here you can see actually a growing medium that's with very nice roots. And these roots, they are not a threat for the growing medium, they are actually an added value because they add biomass, they add also structure in the material. So by reusing growing media for another strawberry cultivation, we could set a step from linear solution where we considered spent growing media at the end of the cultivation as a waste material, and we could directly reuse it for another cultivation by the same grower, or we could steam it and then use it for another crop, for instance, for ornamentals or whatever, as kind of new growing medium. And here you see some of the strawberry plants, very young, that are grown in reused growing media once, twice, 3 times, and we didn't see any negative effect on the plants, on the yield, on diseases. But of course we saw that nutrients, they can accumulate in the growing medium, so in the material that in the pot. And of course, if you then reuse it, you can have like an increasing amount of nutrients that are spoiled. But we saw that we had a very simple solution for that. It was by doing the fertigation at the end of the cultivation, moving from adding fertilizers with water to pure water during only 2 weeks. It really helped to reduce the nutrient retention in the spent growing media, while we didn't see any negative effects on plants or in yield. So it was really a way of cleaning the spent growing media, reducing the nutrient retention, and which allows us to better reuse the growing medium for a next cultivation. And here you see some spent growing media with strawberry plants. They are left in the field because growers, they like to use it as a soil improver. It's very rich in stable carbon. But you can also say, yeah, it's maybe waste disposal. Well, and that's a very nice example from Flanders. The Flanders Farmers Organization, they started a discussion with the Flemish Waste Agency, and we could actually get an end-of-waste certification for this material for spent growing media from strawberry, and it's now allowed for growers to use it as a substrate. Even if it's not a grower where you collect the spent growing media, it can be used by another grower with this end of waste certification, or it can be used by another grower also as a carbon-rich soil improver. So it's really a material with an added value. It was considered as a waste material, as a problem, and now it's considered as a resource. So that's really a very circular solution, I think. And here you see a strawberry plant at the end of cultivation. And as you can see, there is a pot with 4 liters of substrates, and there is a huge plant. Well, actually 4 plants are growing on it. So if you look at the balance between the vegetation and the substrate, it's quite impressive. But also in terms of nutrients, it's quite impressive, because mainly the nutrients, they are taken up by the plant, so they are here and not in the substrate anymore. But even then, we still have to try to have a balanced fertigation. You can look at it from a crop perspective. It means that you want the crop to grow well and to have the good amount of nutrients, EC and pH, and in the growing medium, sorry. But of course, when you look at it from a sustainability point of view, you want this system to be balanced, that at the end of the cultivation, when you remove this material from a greenhouse, that you don't export too high amounts of nutrients from your greenhouse. So this is really a challenge, I think, for circular horticulture, to do something with the crop residues of greenhouse crops and the circular economy. And if we can do that, we have also an opportunity to better reuse the spent growing media also for other cultivations. So for the crop residues, it's now considered as a waste from the greenhouse, but in a circular solution, we can use it as a feedstock for materials, for bio components, for fertilizers, whatever. But I think there is really potential for using this material for these applications. And here, an example from a bell pepper grower in Flanders. And you see here the bell peppers growing. And at the end of his growing season, he has a lot of biomass left, and he decided to cut it into small pieces and compost it himself. And he now wants to reuse the compost for soils, for his soils, but also he is trying to reusing it as a growing medium for the next generation of bell pepper plants. So yeah, we are looking forward to see if it will be successful or not, but I think it's a nice example of a circular solution. So we come back to the soil in the end, because this grower in open field growing cauliflowers, he is quite tackling a lot of issues. He has to make a balance between nutrient losses, between phosphorus use efficiency, between the soil health that he has to take into account, the nitrates directive, the request of using biomass for bioenergy production, but also the need to maybe store more carbon in agricultural soils for the climate change policy. But to balance all these expectations to fields, it's quite challenging, and so he might be considering for his very fertile soils, which are low in carbon, to use renewable and stable carbon to store it in the soils to improve the soil health. But this biomass we may also need in the greenhouse to make good growing media for all these applications, as you can see here, to maybe to grow mushrooms or to make these transplants that we can then later transplant to the field to grow vegetables there. So as you can see here, these are the very small cauliflowers which are ready to be put in the field. But maybe there is competition for this biomass. On the one hand, we want to use it in the field to increase the carbon content, while on the other hand, maybe we want to use it to make growing media. For instance, green compost, which is a nice resource, and it's actually a circular material. Well, we can decide to use it directly in the field to increase carbon contents, or we can decide to use this green compost first in growing media to grow strawberries. Then we have the spent horticultural substrate, and this one we can put in the field as a source of stable carbon. And actually we compared the two scenarios, and we actually saw that this can work. You can use materials first in a growing medium, and then afterwards you can use this growing media instead of green compost to add more carbon and more stable carbon to agricultural soils. So there should not be any competition for biomass. So in a linear system, we work with the cascade principle. It means that for each type of biomass, we decide what is like the best application. While in a circular solution, we can use biomass in a cascade. It means we can use it in several applications in a cascade system to avoid this competition, like we have seen for the green compost system in horticultural substrates. And then we come to the next topic. It's biochar. Biochar, it's actually biomass that you convert into a carbon-rich material at very high temperatures and the absence of oxygen. So it's like a very dark carbon-rich material. It's very stable, very predictable. I think it has very high potential in growing media to maintain the structure of the substrate, but very promising. It's also a way of getting rid of microplastics. Also like components like PFAS, you can strongly reduce. Also pathogens, of course, they will not survive 400, 500, 600 degrees. So it's like cleaning biomass. So in a circular system, we will always end up with problematic biomass. And with this kind of techniques, we can clean the biomass and we can reuse it in circular horticulture. It's a circular material, I think, and it is also has a very high potential for carbon storage. So here you see some examples of this biochar. And what is very nice about it, well, you can convert feedstock into biochar, and if you have a good reactor and a good process, you produce actually energy, renewable energy, which is very promising because we do a lot of sustainability analysis, and there the energy we need to process a product, to make a product, to transport a product, it's really determining like the impact of something. And here we have all of a sudden a material that makes energy for us. Very nice. And this carbon, it's very stable. You can use it in the field to store carbon, but you can also use it for a lot of other applications, environmental applications, but also you can use it again in growing media. You can use it as a carrier for nutrients, so to make slow release fertilizers. You can use it as a carrier for microbiology. You can use it to reduce emissions during a lot of processes. So it's really a material that you can also use in a cascade system for multiple goals. For instance, we recently found that some kind of biochars we can use to inoculate trichoderma or other beneficial fungi. They grow better on this material and they can better survive when you use this, for instance, in a growing medium. Here you have some examples of biochar, so you can convert new materials into this black carbon biochar. Or for instance, growing media, spent growing media, you can also upcycle into biochar and then reuse it for different applications. So, as a conclusion, when we talk about nutrients, when we talk about circular horticulture, we have several examples where we could really, we have a circular system for nutrients, for carbon, for biomass, for water, for energy, and in the end, luckily not for pathogens, diseases, or pollutants. If you bring the system in a good balance and if you use the proper techniques and the proper decisions, I think we can move to the circular horticulture. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much indeed, Bart. And Bart will be staying on for the panel discussion, so if you have questions from him, we will take those at the end. So thank you again for the great presentation. I don't know why I have a sudden craving for strawberries. For now, our next speaker is not able, unfortunately, to be with us here in person, but she has sent an exclusive video. It's from the Dutch MEP, Jeske van Leeuwen, who is a member of the European Parliament's Agri Committee, so with a special interest in our topic here today. Let's have a look.
so-called precision farming and the robotization in agriculture. Despite these proven advantages, CEA has not yet received sufficient attention from the European Commissioner for Agriculture, Christopher Hansen, in his vision of agriculture. We have therefore urged him to increase focus and support for this sector across Europe. With the growing challenge of balancing land use between housing, a rising population and food production, greenhouses offer a practical and sustainable solution. To fully realize this potential, the greenhouse sector must receive greater support under the second pillar of the agricultural policy, CAP. We believe more emphasis on CEA should be placed in good agricultural and environmental conditions. Consistent attention and the strategic integration of this sector into national strategic plans are essential to achieve this. BBB advocates for the simplification of regulations to reduce administrative burden, particularly in horticulture, to help Europe maintain its competitive edge. Existing rules should be further adapted to better support greenhouse and vertical farming practices. The European Commission should present a comprehensive plan to support small-scale, family-run and young farmers, encouraging generational renewal and strengthening social cohesion. Young farmers are vital to rural communities, yet they face significant economic and environmental challenges. Such a plan would strengthen their resilience and secure the future of European agriculture. Fostering entrepreneurship, vocational training, innovation and digitalization in agriculture alongside improved access to investment and better succession planning for new businesses is critical for the sector's future. At the EU level, instruments such as reinsurance schemes, reformed agricultural reserves and safeguard mechanisms can help farmers withstand market shocks, natural disasters, health crises and the impacts of trade agreements. However, better communication from European and national authorities is needed to ensure farmers are aware and can access these tools. As we advance agricultural innovation, we must not overlook the importance of innovative breeding techniques such as CRISPR-Cas and alternatives for crop protection, and work towards their rapid approval. Finally, as international trade expands and creates additional pressure and unfair competition for our farmers, it is crucial that imported agricultural products from outside the EU comply with our strict production and environmental standards. This ensures fair competition, product safety and sustainability. I say, let's reform Europe.
Well, we are grateful. Thanks to MEP there for sending through her thoughts. Now, this is where you can get your phones out. Again, we're going to have a quick look at Mentimeter. Now, if you're following online, of course, you can go directly to menti.com and you can join there. Let's see if we can get the QR code up here on the screen for everyone here in the room. We have just a couple of questions and they're going to set the scene, and we'll maybe use some of the information we find out during our panel discussion. Okay, so we should have a QR code to show here so that people can join. Yeah, okay. Yeah, alternatively, you can go to menti.com and put in the code 63523065, 63523065, although I do think the QR code would probably be easier. Any chance? Okay, well, for those who have connected, which I already have here on my tablet, we do have the questions. So the first question is, in your view, what is the biggest barrier to scaling circular practices in European horticulture? And it's a multiple choice question. The first is lack of funding. Number two is policy and regulatory gaps. Next is limited collaboration across the value chain, lack of consumer awareness, or technological or knowledge gaps. Which of those do you think is going to be the biggest barrier to scaling circular practices in European horticulture? So people can vote there. We'll see what they say. So far, I'm seeing that there's only a few people have voted. Okay. Can we get this up on screen at all? Okay. Okay, well, at least on my tablet, I can see that we have a few people have voted. 2 people say it's lack of funding. 4 people are saying it's policy and regulatory gaps. Another a vote for each limited collaboration and lack of consumer awareness. So far, we're not seeing that there's anybody claiming that technological or knowledge gaps are the biggest barrier. So I think that is probably good news, especially for people at Ilvo, Bart. If we're not able to get this up, can we go on to the second question? I'm not sure if we can. Okay, let's see. Okay. Aha, there we go. Those are the results as we have them from our very unscientific poll. So let's have a look at the second question. Okay, that's still not up. Our second question, when it appears, will be, what do you see as the most promising opportunity to advance circular horticulture in Europe? So the flip side of our first question, what are the barriers? Now, what are the main opportunities? And your multiple choice options there are supportive EU policies and funding, public-private collaboration and partnerships, innovation and digital technologies, growing consumer demand for sustainability, or the knowledge exchange and training for growers. So again, linked back to some of those first questions. Now, I'm not seeing anyone being able to vote yet on the second question. Okay. Can we get that second question live? I'm afraid I do not have the power in my tablet to do so. No, it was there for a brief second. Maybe with the clicker. No. Okay, I think we'll abandon the second opportunity and we'll see if we can get that up and running, maybe to mark the end of our panel discussion, because it's an interesting question. We do want to know what everyone sees as the promising opportunities. So, with that, I will try and get us. Nope. It's definitely not wanting to work. There we go. Right, let's move on to our panel discussion. And I will indeed probably ask our panellists the second question as well. So please join me on stage, Cecilia Lütke-Brune, who is Secretary General of Growing Media Europe and a European Umbrella Association for 10 years. And I should say that Grodan is a member. Giovanni Misanelli is director of Assomella, that is the national association representing Italian apple producers. Luc Haverkamp is the EU representative of Noord-Holland, a region particularly known for its innovative agriculture and horticulture sector. Luc coordinates agriculture, nature and environment working groups for all 12 Dutch provinces. And we will welcome back to join us again, please, Bart, who you met just a few minutes ago, and he is still a senior researcher at Ilvo. So let me start, Cecilia, with you, just to get your initial reaction to the keynote presentation and indeed to our MEP's video message. Do you see any alignment gaps with your own experience or perspective on circular horticulture?
No, actually, I can just agree with Jessica van der Leuven. The most important point she said, in my view, is that the vision of Commissioner Hansen lacks in a very, very important topic, and that is horticulture. So he did not only not mention circular horticulture or let alone growing media, but he didn't talk about horticulture at all in his vision. And to me, that is quite a big paradox, because if you follow what the EU claims their goals are, right, the Green Deal goals, but even above the Green Deal, everybody is supposed to eat more fruits and vegetables. We want to have greener cities. We want to do a lot of afforestation and reforestation. So basically, we need horticulture so urgently. It's so vital to boost horticulture to reach all those goals, but at the same time, this vision doesn't even mention it. So she is totally right to point out that there's a huge, a paradox there.
Thank you. I think we do have another mic in the room, if we could maybe get it up here as well. Giovanni, turning to you, you've a slightly different perspective from our other panelists, but what's your initial reaction, your reflections on the presentation and the video? And where do you see gaps? Do you agree with Cecilia or with our MEP? What's your thoughts?
Okay, thank you. So it's a pleasure to be here and discussing about this important topic. The presentation was quite interesting, really, because we see the importance to stay together and to work together on this important topic and challenge that we face. Regarding the vision and the new approach of the Commission, we saw for a fruit and vegetable sector, we really face a period that probably we never lived before. We have a lot of challenge that compromised a lot our work today, but we see at least the approach try to be the right one. We see a lot the importance of about the plant protection products, about the use of all the different tools that we have available, and we would like to think that Commissioner know that they will able to provide us what we need. For sure, it's always the same thing. There are sectors more powerful than as we are, as horticulture, as fruit and vegetables, and that's a pity because at the economical level anyway, we are not such a smaller than the other. So we really need to stay together and to make our message louder to be listened to our policymakers.
Well, I think that's why we have events like today here in Brussels right close to them. So from Italy to North Holland, let's see if there's been any change in perspective. What's your reaction, Luke?
Well, I'm sorry, I have to wholeheartedly agree with Cecilia and Jessica as well that it's a shame that controlled environment agriculture wasn't mentioned more in the vision, because I think it offers so much opportunity, so many opportunities. It's such an innovative way of producing food, with the challenge that we have in Europe with food security, but also sustainability, because of those closed systems, you can reuse water. There's so much innovation possible. So I think that's unfortunate, but it was also really nice to see your presentation on biochar. We have a very innovative company as well in North Holland that produces biochar with biomass. So it was really nice to hear more about that.
Yeah, Bart, your thoughts as well, your reaction to hearing from your fellow panelists, and also maybe are you surprised that given how pleasing this innovation is and how potentially advantageous it can be, it's not featuring higher on the Commission's list?
Yeah, it's a little bit shocking as a scientist to hear it, because I think in Flanders, it's our horticultural sector. It's really an example of innovation and also an added economic value. They are very high, and even if the area that we use for horticulture is quite limited, the economic impact is quite high. So if we have like a regional policy plan, horticulture is always involved, and then at European level, it's lacking. That's not good news, I think. Yeah.
Let me come to Giovanni next again. Tell me a bit, looking at the economic, social, and environmental sustainability side of things. So there's a lot of elements. How is your sector advancing circularity in horticulture, and what are the main challenges you're currently facing, or perhaps speculate on challenges you see in Europe?
Yeah, thank you. So for us, it's something important that now we can speak about these three different aspects of the sustainability, because it was not like that always in the past. So now that's something important. We tried and we explained that economical point of view, it's really important that we as farmers we work together with the environment and with the environmental sustainability. So there is no point that someone else should decide for us how to protect and to work within our environment, so our orchard. We, as fruit and vegetables, we do since a lot of time the integrated pest management agriculture, where we try and we do we do that, we put together the different tools that that are available for us. So when our approach is that if it's need to use chemicals tools, we need to do that in order to assure our production for the consumers, but at the same time we do that and we use them just when we don't have other solution. At the same time, the pollinators are something really important for us. We really need to preserve them, and we really need to create a good environment for them in our orchard. So we are really involved in creating a good environment and a sustainable environment, but we cannot forget that our activities for the farmers need to be remunerative. If not, we will see fields and if we speak about mountain agriculture that will be abandoned more and more. Our association has the biggest members in the Alps, in Italian Alps, so in the Alto Adige, Sud Tirol, and Trentino. We see them, the farmers, as a really risky job there because it's not easy. We work at the under the sky, as you well know. So we really need to keep them there, and we need to create a value on the product.
Well, I think when you make this economic case, circularity is a no-brainer, as the Americans would say. Same question to you, Luke. I mean, I'm sure in your work you're looking at economic, social and environmental impacts. So tell us what you see are the challenges.
Yes, definitely. First, we'd like to give a brief introduction of my region so that I can explain the challenges as well more. But Noord-Holland is the region where Amsterdam is located in. And of course, horticulture, controlled environment agriculture is a very important sector for our whole country, for the Netherlands. And 13% of this sector is located in my region, which is quite a substantial percentage. But to give you a comparison, the region of South Holland, our lovely neighbor, 80% of the sector is located in that region. And then in the south of our region, we mostly have flowers production. And in the north, we have mostly bell peppers, tomatoes, and cucumbers, so vegetables. And this, of course, brings a lot of economic prosperity to our region, but it also comes with certain challenges. From a regional perspective, our role is, of course, largely spatial planning. There's not a lot of space in the Netherlands, so we have to share that space. Of course, there's environmental pressure, the issue of water usage, and of course energy demand. That all comes together in this small space. But there's a lot of innovation happening on these challenges. Of course, in energy, we try to, from a regional role, we try to cluster the sector, the economic activity in horticulture, so that heat is shared in a heat network, for example, by the use of geothermal energy, warmth, but also because we have a lot of data centers in our region, and that they generate a lot of heat. So we're now experimenting with using the heat of those data centers, which is also very important for our economy, in the greenhouses. With water, the sector is now collecting rainwater underneath the greenhouses, so that water can be used, and they don't have to use the groundwater that also people that live in that very populated area have to use. And then we have the issue of grid congestion in the Netherlands, but especially also in Noord-Holland. We have issues with sometimes a lot of electricity is needed, sometimes less electricity is needed. And because horticulture sector uses now gas to produce energy for the greenhouses, they can actually upscale that gas usage if there is more need for energy. So that also helps in that issue. Yeah, there are some challenges, and yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, of course, the Netherlands has a very long history of innovation when it comes to land management, possibly dating back several centuries. So when we look at the future, there's great technological innovation, of course, that's what we're talking about today. But Cecilia, you're an umbrella organisation, so you're hearing from your members rather. What are their challenges? What are they facing?
Well, the first question you asked is how is your sector advancing circularity in? Thanks. The first question you ask is how is your sector advancing circularity in horticulture, and my very bold answer would be simply by existing and by doing what we're doing, because growing media are such a cornerstone of controlled environment agriculture, of modern horticulture. It couldn't exist without the products that our member companies produce. And you've heard about it from Bianca. Grodan is a member of Growing Media Europe. You saw several growing media in the presentation of Bart. So there is no circular horticulture without growing media, I would say. And our members, if I look now at GME, we advocate strongly for the inclusion of nutrient recycling and for the use of more and more secondary raw materials. So our member companies are spending a lot of resources on research and development, looking into how to use more digestate, more plant residues, more compost without compromising quality, which isn't an easy exercise, but they're doing it because, like you said, Jen, it's a no-brainer. If you want, as an industry, if you want to still exist in the future, you have to look at how to get better at circularity. So that's for the first question. Then if you ask about the biggest challenge our sector is facing, we are a really small sector. Our turnover Europe-wide is more or less 2 billion. That's tiny, right? But, like I said, we are a pillar of the horticultural sector, which is not so tiny. Still, our biggest problem really is that people are simply not aware of us, what we do, why we do what we do. And that definitely leads to some political decisions that are so far away from industry practice, not because those who take those decisions have a completely different opinion. They are simply not aware. And we are a small association, and we work hard to reach out to everybody who takes those decisions. Yeah, but it's not an easy task. So that would be the biggest challenge for us.
Well, thank you. I mean, I see that lack of consumer awareness was one of the options people voted from when they mentioned their barriers, and also policy and regulatory gaps, which again may also come down to, in some cases, a lack of knowledge or a lack of awareness. Luke, can you share any lessons learned or insights from ongoing circularity initiatives in your area? Is there hope there that we can see that we might be able to raise awareness?
From a regional government perspective, for us, collaboration is crucial because, as has been said before, the sector is a very innovative sector. So a lot of the challenges they can handle it themselves, but we try to not over-regulate, but to work together with the sector. So we are organized in these so-called green ports in the Netherlands, of which a few are also located in my region, in which the educational system, the government, and the sector works together. And where we can steer, for example, reduce of energy loss, and the sector will go on with that and create their own pilot projects. An interesting example, well, we were talking about biochar. We have this company called Carboculture, which uses a gasification to turn biomass into biochar, which can be used for a lot of different ways, so that we're experimenting with that in our region. I already mentioned the use of data center heat, but also we have in the Netherlands, for example, this issue of leftover manure from the cow industry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Actually, some companies from the sector offered to, well, they normally don't do it, but to use these animal manure to help also other sectors with their challenges. So that's a nice way of where you see that if you work together, if you help each other, there's a lot of things possible.
And Giovanni, any lessons learned or any special insight that you can give from your area?
So from our area, we have some of interesting example that we can bring. A first one is at the organization level. We have the two main one of the two main producer organization in Südtirol who just created a third consortium which does a different type of product that is a transformed product, always with apples. So we created a chain, a production chain, where the fresh fruit is not able to go to on the market. We use it in a different way, so producing juice fruit or secondary product, and this is at the all level inside our production chain. So we were able to use almost 100% of the apples that are not allowed or are not fitting the different so the idea that the market has for them, to go to this different destination and to be used and to create added value that in the end will arrive at the producer. So no product from the producer, the farmer, will be wasted, and that's something important. Speaking about circularity and all the idea on respecting the environment and to use our tools that we already have in a Italian valley in Trentino. It was created a cave, a natural cave, where we are now able to store apples, fresh apples, inside the mountain. That's a first example of this, of something like that. It was really recycling the mountain, because before there was a totally different enterprise that was working there. They were just extracting rocks. And then with a local collaboration, it was possible to to think about how use this mountain, and they are called celle hypogee, so hypogeal cells, where we really are able now to store. It's around there are more than 30 cells that are with the controlled atmosphere right now, where we can anyway use more than 50% less than of electricity there, and at the same time we can store around more than 30,000 tons of apples inside there. So if the problem before was to find place and where store apples, and one of the answer, it was like build new warehouse. Now it was possible to find a natural store where actually it's possible to store apples and to keep them there for the normal duration, the normal life period of apples that is now more than 6, 7, 8 months. We can arrive also to 1 year. So I think this is an important demonstration of how the circular economy can be applied at the local level, and when we have opportunity like that.
Well, Cecilia, as well, you knew I was going to ask you for your examples on lessons learned or insight from initiatives. What are they?
Well, overall, I already said it, the will to innovate is absolutely there in our sector, even the will to spend a lot of money, because they see the greater good, but it often is hindered by legislative and administrative burdens and hurdles and bureaucracy and all of that. So we heard about the great example of getting that end of waste status, but I would actually like to know from Bart, how long did it take to get that? Because very often, and depending on the member state you're in and all of that, it can take a long time. Like if you look at my home country, Germany, if you want to build a composting plant, which, you know, sounds like something everybody should be in favor of, because we all want to use more compost and it's circular and all of that, Yeah, but it can take you 6, 7 years to get a permit to even build that plant. So, yeah, then the motivation like goes down quite fast. And the second overall learning is, I think it was already kind of said that the biggest increase in circularity can be achieved only if all value chain partners work together, because we as the growing media producers are just a small part of the horticultural value chain. And if we really want to move the needle, let's say, then we all need to work together. That's the biggest learning, I would say.
Well, I'm going to come straight back to you then, Cecilia, because I want to know what sort of policies and incentives would best support circular innovation horticulture. And this is going to be for all our panelists before I come to Bart.
Well, we are dreaming of, let's say, a comprehensive European policy that really boosts the use of circular materials, that really looks at the whole sector, that of course also incentivizes research, but that mainly creates rules that take industry practices into account, because what we see at the moment is that there is no European legislation that really reflects what has already been done without any issues in a lot of member states. So there is some member states that have legislation on certain materials, and that works very well. Nobody's getting sick, the plants are growing well, it's all fine, but for some reason in a different member state it looks completely different. And so a coherent policy framework would be, I think the biggest driver. So that would be my wish.
Yeah, I think I agree. We really need a coherent policy. We need a view that we can follow, and the policymaker which understand our needs. I think for the fruit and vegetable sectors, we have this the CMO, the Common Market Organization, which will help us in planning and structure the future. We are able also to plan research. That is something really important for us in order to understand where to go, in order to collaborate with institutions and with the university, with the industry as well, because we need to collaborate, as it was said. We need to plan together where to go, and that in this case the European Union can follow us, and at the same time that we can follow the idea that the European Union and the policymaker have about our system. So we really need the good approach for from our institutions, but I think we already have something important and useful to use and to develop together.
And Luke, then, what, from your perspective, types of policies or incentives will best support circular horticulture innovation, and the whole ecosystem, if you like, that we want to create? So not necessarily just policies at EU level, but what sort of joined up thinking and incentives do we need?
Yeah, from what I know, current policies are quite sectoral, so they look especially at how you can reuse materials within the sector, but I think it could be more intersectoral. You can use, for example, we use tomato juice as nutrients for the soil, but you can use the stems for isolation material in airplanes, but it's very difficult now to do that on a large scale. I think policies could be more intersectoral focused.
Well, Bart, I know you've been listening along to our discussion here. Give me some of your reflections on what you've heard and where you see maybe the biggest opportunities for collaboration, because I know Ilvo does great work, but there needs to be that science working together with the industry, making the same messages to the public, working with the policymakers and together with researchers. So there's a lot of people who need to come around the table to scale circular solutions, and we hear great examples, but we want them to work on a mass level. So tell us what you think is causing you to be optimistic, or likewise any suggestions you might have.
Okay, I think it's good to have like a European framework for these kind of concepts, but on the other hand, it's very important to have the regional translation of this framework, because Dutch conditions or Belgian conditions, they are quite similar, but they are maybe completely different from other regions in Europe, and just to make like one solution, it does not fit for every problem, so you have to really fit it to local conditions and regional conditions. That's very important, and for that you need collaboration also with growers, with the industry, I think, and to find the best solution.
And do you see any big opportunities on the horizon that you think maybe in terms of getting the message across we should be focusing on?
Sometimes you see like, well, you gave some examples of these tomato stems, and you can use them for a lot of things. And then there are a lot of opportunities, but one will be the solution and maybe not all combinations. So sometimes a decision needs to be made about what is like the way to go with one biomass type of one problem and how we can solve it, and then go for that solution. But sometimes there are several solutions, and they stay on the table and nobody takes a decision and nothing happens. That's sometimes a problem. Yeah.
Okay, so no one size fits all. We need place-based solutions and solution-focused policies all working together. Have we questions from anyone in the room? Anything you'd like to ask our panelists or ask Bart from his presentation? Anyone? I'm not seeing anyone burning to ask a question. Yeah? Okay. This might work for you if you
Yeah,
want.
but the audience is not that crowded, so I manage. Regarding legislation, and it's a pity nobody from the legislation authorities is present, but we have developed, for example, a 100% biodegradable disinfectant which would be perfectly suitable in a circular economy. And 400 meters away from here, in 2017 in the Dutch embassy, it was said, okay, we are going to re-regulate the biocidal system. And it started in 2018. We are now 25. We are 2 million euros further, and we still are not approved. So the question to Europe, in whatever entity it is, how can you expect from a company to invest even 3 million euros without any prospect on when these products will be available on the market? Meanwhile, products containing products of concern are regulated.
Okay.
And so what does Europe, unfortunately, nobody can
Nobody.
but this is the struggle we are facing. We are not represented. We try to do our best, but nothing is moving. And then, pardon my French, for ILVO, I was expecting from ILVO more a active role in support. I'm sorry, you are the only one I can personally address to. But we would like to see more, let's say, real progress in these circular economies. And institutions, as ILVO and many others, have an obligation actually to support the farmers, because if they use the correct techniques, it will become more sustainable.
I think not the first time we've heard these comments in discussions in this sector in Brussels. The time to market is a concerning factor. I think, Cecilia, you mentioned a little bit that how long it takes to get there is an issue. I know as well Giovanni was saying you need to make the economic case, and if you can't make that, of course, people are not going to feel like investing. De-risking is a word that's the current buzzword in Brussels, and we're you hear a lot of pressure on the Commission and the institutions to find ways to de-risk, to encourage investment in innovative technologies in whatever sector, not just the bioeconomy. But that's something I think the message is heard. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that or follow up on that, because as you say, we don't have a Commission representative here. No. Okay. In that case, what I'm going to ask you is for each of you, in your 30-second nutshell to wrap up, what's the key takeaway you want to say to the EU institutions, since we are here in Brussels? Cecilia.
Well, I'll try. I'll say if you want to reach your own goals, let it be the farm to fork or all the Green Deal goals or whatnot, you need to put modern horticulture, including CEA, much higher on your priority list.
Yeah, I would say, anyway, I agree about the needs to have a clear legislation and a clear view of where we are going, because if not, as it was said, no one will want anymore to invest. And we need, as Europe, we need investment, we need industry, we need economical actors that works together with us. So it will be important to have a clear way where we need to go, and to do that together, and to explain also, to collaborate with the institutions and with the university and all these people that can bring and can bring numbers and express the scientific word. I think we need the scientific word.
Luke, in a nutshell.
Yeah, look at the potential that controlled environment agriculture has for your goals, your European goals. Come look in North Holland, come look in South Holland either. Might be Flanders or Andalusia, but see what beautiful things are happening there and how it can help you.
And Bart, a final word from you.
Okay, I would say do not underestimate the competence for innovation by growers in terms of circular horticulture.
Well, that's a good one. Thank you for all those headlines to take away. Thank you very much indeed for our speakers. Could I get a warm round of applause for our panellists? And so, almost exactly on time, I am going to hand the floor back to the closing remarks to Bianca Ostelar, from the Public Affairs Manager from Grodan. Thank you very much, Bianca.
Well, first of all, of course, I'd like to thank all the panelists who participated in giving an inspiring insights in what they are looking forward to see happening within circular solutions in horticulture, looking at it from very different angles, which was also quite entertaining for us as well. I learned a couple of very interesting new facts from you, Bart. So thank you very much for your presentation. And of course, I'd like to thank all people who are present here to join us, to listen in, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you next year. And I would like to invite you, because there are, what I heard, some drinks later on. So thank you very much for participating, and enjoy your evening.